Chavre, how are you? A good night of Shabbos Kodesh. Today is Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parshas Pekudei, Shabbos Chazak. And first of all, we're going to give charity, as we've done in the last couple of months. Gdel Tzedakah Shemakarev Segula. In the honor of this charity, Mashiach should come now. The war should be over. We should be victorious, and all the hostages should return home. How are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis v'ruchnis. I hope every one of you is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today we're going to talk about something which on the one hand is very, very basic, and I'm sure I spoke about it before, but I don't know if I, as usual, we speak about many things that are especially that are important and essential more than once, but each time something different is added, or maybe a different emphasis is stressed. So let's start with a prayer, which will be directly related to the story of this week's Parsha, and that is the Pasuk in Tehillim, which you say in davening also sometimes, and that is Kapitel Tzadik, Pasuk Yud Zayin, which this was the prayer, as we'll soon see, that Moshe Rabbeinu said, as the Mishkan was finished, as we see in this week's Parsha, V'hi noya madinoya leheinu aleinu, Omai seyadenu kainen aleinu, Omai seyadenu kaineneo. May the pleasantness of Hashem, our Hashem, be upon us. Establish for us the work of our hands. Establish the work of our hands. This was the final prayer that Moshe said after the Mishkan was erected. And after that prayer, and they picked up the walls, then the Shekhinah, Hashem's divine presence, came down into the Mishkan. Now, in general, before we start, there's much discussion about Parshas Truma, Tetzaveh, the repeat, Vayakel, Pekudei, but I think there's one emphasis, and in this light, I'm especially inspired concerning Shabbos Chazak, is that Parshas Pekudei is the climax. And Parshas Pekudei, that's why it's greater than Vayakel. Because here is the story where Hashem comes down into the Mishkan, as it says in the end of the Parsha, that the Anan, the cloud of glory, came and rested on the Mishkan. So everything we spoke about until now, Parshas Truma, Tetzaveh, aspects of Parshas Kisisa, Vayakel, Pekudei, here is where it all comes to fruition, and we come to the climax, Tachlis. What was it all about? That we should see how V'shachanti b'seichom, b'seich kol echavechem Yisrael, how Hashem actually resides in the Mishkan. And that's what really means Chazak Chazak. After all the work, and all the kavanas, and all the intentions, and all the planning, and all the preparation, and all the different kelim they had to make, Chazak Chazak v'nis chazek, we see that there's the result of Hashem coming down to the Mishkan, which that's the purpose of it all. So now let's talk about this formula, this dynamic of doing our part and then Hashem doing His part. And this is a very, very basic thing. And today, I don't know how much I'm going to get into the depth and the profundity and the theology, psychology or Kabbalah of it all, and more just say some stories. But let's first talk about some questions, and then we'll get to the theology a bit. Anyways, in this week's Parsha, Kapitel Lametes, Pasuk Lamed Beis, it says, Vatechal kol avedis Mishkan el meid. All the work of the Mishkan, the tent of meeting, was completed. Vayasav b'nei Yisrael kechel shesiv Hashem es Moshe kein osu. And the children of Hashem did all that Hashem had commanded Moshe, so did they do. So here you can have a klotz kasha l'chayra, an obvious question that the order of the pasuk should be the opposite way around. It should say, Vayasav b'nei Yisrael, k'chel shetziva Hashem es Moshe kein osu. The Yidden finished doing all the work, and then, Vatechel kol avedis Mishkan el meid. And then all the work was finished. What does it mean that all the work was completed, and then it says all the Yidden did the work? That's one question. And the answer to that question is also going to be understood by immediately the next pasuk, that says that they brought the Mishkan to Moshe. what does it mean? They finished all the work, then they brought it to Moshe. And then Rashi brings over here an amazing, amazing word. And this is what Rashi says. I'm going to read it to you inside. The Yidden were unable to erect the Mishkan. Since Moshe did not do any work in the Mishkan, Hashem let its erection being brought up, pick it up to him. No man was able to erect it because of the weight of the beams. Man does not have the strength to set them upright. It's impossible. And Moshe was able to pick it up. How did that happen? Because you said no person can pick it up. How can the Mishkan being picked up be accomplished by man? They told Moshe, involve yourself with your hands. Lift your pinky. Do something. It will appear as if you were setting it up. But in truth, but rise upright and stand by itself. This is what the pasuk says later on. Mishkan. The Mishkan was set up. The passive verb implies that it was set up on its own. And this comes from the Medrash. So, here we see exactly the formula of everyone's success according to the way you're supposed to live your life as a Torah-observant Jew with the right mindset, with the right attitude towards your work. And that is, you have to realize that all your success and everything that happens in life is not attributed to your own talents and your own faculties. Chas v'sholem, God forbid that a person say, that it was my brains and my talent that accomplished what accomplished in life. No. You have to attribute all your success to Hashem. It's Hashem who's there and brings you the mazel. As the Gemara says, especially when it comes to matters of physical life, the basics, the necessities. You have to realize there's something called mazel. And when it comes to parnasa, when it comes to health, and when it comes to those things, you have to realize in the end that all your efforts, if Hashem is not Ma'aseh Yadeinu Kaineneu, then you will not see the success. So you have to realize the main success comes from Hashem. What He wants you to do is do something. Do your part. And really, in a certain sense, everything that we're doing is like this story with Moshe Rabbeinu. The Rebbe says, mach with the hand, just go like this. Put a pinky to the beam. You just put the pinky, and then I'll make it that the beams will spring up. And it's the same thing, it's a famous interpretation of the verse. On the one hand we say, when does Hashem bless you? You gotta do something. If you will do something, then Hashem will help you. But at the same time, we also say, once you go with such an approach, whatever you'll do will be good enough. As long as you realize that you're just making a vehicle, an avenue, so that Hashem's blessings should come through in this world. You're making a conduit, an opening. But really, it's Hashem that is doing it. I once said a word, and I mentioned this before. A Meshulach once came to my house to raise money for a wedding of one of his children. And he said that he heard a word, I think he said the name of the Breslover, as when skim to chasana, health nicht der Eibishter. When it comes to a chasana, this is mezuk that the Eibishter health is nicht emes. When it comes to a wedding, we say that the Eibishter helps. That's not true. No, helft nicht, macht die ganze Sache. If you say he helps, that means you're doing something and Hashem is helping. It's a 50-50. But the truth is, He makes the whole thing. What He's asking from us is just lift up your pinky, like the Eibishter told Moshe, mach with the hand, just make like you're doing something. But really, it's not the human's effort that's possible for him to accomplish this thing. It's Hashem's power and abilities that's making it happen. So the question is over here, really, a question of what we see is that we have to toil. This is also very much the lesson over here. Because you could ask a question, why can't the Eibishter just do everything himself? And even though in this case, in the case of the Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't see the toil aspect too much, because all he told them was machmed the hand. But in general, let's just take the idea over here that the Eibishter asks Moshe to do something, and then he helps. And really, what we should talk about in general, in Yiddishkeit, is the idea of toil. And toil means he actually wants you to work hard, and still realize that it's not through your hard work that the success comes, but it comes through Hashem. But we're meant to do hard work also. Why is that so? Why do we have to have the toil? So in general, it seems like there's two aspects to it. One aspect, which is very understood according to Chassidus Chabad, is, as the Alter Rebbe explains in chapter 15 of Tanya, and the theme is also in chapter 30, and I don't want to get into it now, and it's based on the Mishnah, Lefum Tzaira Agra, according to the toil is the reward. Why? And the same thing we all know, and I think I spoke about it once, that we have a saying that we say, a prayer, and the Gemara brings it down in Brachas, Daf Chav Chesam Beis, that someone says, Ani Amol V'heim Amelim, Anachnu Amelim Makablim Socher, we toil and we get reward, but V'heim Amelim Ein Makablim Schar. The others, the Gentiles, they toil and they don't get reward. And the Gemara says, B'tziyosei Ma'oim, when he leaves the Bismedrash, he says, Moida Ani Lefanecha, thank you Hashem. Moida Ani Lefanecha, Hashem Likai. Shesasamta Chelki Miyeshi Bisamedrash. You made my lot in life to be from the people that sit and learn Torah. You didn't make my lot in life to be the ones that are hanging around street corners. I'm getting up and I'm running to the Bismedish to learn. They also get up and I'm getting up for Torah. And they're running to Dvarim B'Teilim. Mundane talk. I read an article this week, I heard that there were certain fans in the NFL, they were sitting in sub-0 degrees weather, watching a game, and the news report was that some of them had to have limbs, fingers and toes amputated. So here we have people, hey mashkimim v'ana mashkimim, they're running in a way of shtus the klipa mamish to a football game, and we're running to learn Torah. And we get schar. Ani omol v'heim amelim, ani omol m'kabel schar, v'heim amelim v'heim m'kabel schar. But what's the point? The point is that only in Yiddishkeit do we see that there's an emphasis on the idea of toil. L'fum agra, l'fum tzayra agra. According to the toil is the reward, not according to the results. Not according to how you might measure it from the outside, but according to the effort. So what's the reason for that? So it seems like there's 2 points of it. Again, because we have to make it clear. There's one point that there's going to be a point of just effort for the purpose of effort, but then there's another point that generally speaking, different than what I just said, generally speaking, the Eibush to put into the system also that when you do work, you're gaiti, you do see reward. But let's first rewind to the first point. Only in Yiddishkeit, only in Yiddishkeit, it's the only arena, the only field, the only realm where you'll be getting reward just for the toil will be in Yiddishkeit, in your relationship with Hashem. In the world, the bottom line is the dollar. That's it. Is it a profit? Is it not? If you're a salesman, it's based on commission. You tried, it doesn't count for nothing. Trying is not enough. We need to see results. In Yiddishkeit, you will be rewarded according to the trying. So, as I mentioned before, the Alter Rebbe in chapter 15 explains the concept of somebody who's considered serving Hashem. See there, it's such a revolutionary chapter of Tanya. And the message is that what's the true sign of someone, on the one hand, who's in a relationship with Hashem? That there's a significant other, and that is Hashem, and you serve Him. How do you know if you serve Him? Maybe you're serving yourself. The answer is, whether what you're doing is only something that fits your comfort zone, whether you're doing something that is only according to your profile, or you're able to go out of yourself. On the one hand, you can call it obedience. On the other hand, you can call it transcendence. How do you actually go away from your preconceived notions? How do you break out of your nature, of your limitations? By doing something which is completely unpredictable and difficult and involves sweating the small stuff, breaking yourself to do something against your nature if this is what Hashem wants. So this is amazing. L'fum tzayda agra. The Eibishter looks at a person, not how many mesechtes he learned, not how many blat gemara he knows by heart, not if he's running around with a big suitcase full of mitzvahs. It's all beautiful. But on the other hand, we have to look at how difficult it was and it is for you to accomplish what you're meant to accomplish. Which in general, some commentators bring out a point that this is also an amazing, amazing statement of encouragement to our generation. Because a person could think, we say this generation is Maita, Mechit, Balvavis, everything looks bad. We have no Rashi, Rambam, we have no Gedolim. Most of the greats, giants, were from previous generations. And the older you get and you see what's going on, you think to yourself, it's not really getting better. What's the story? But then you get these words of the Mishnah, L'fum tzayda agra, according to the effort is the reward. In other words, guess what? Every generation had their shlichus, their mission. And if we look at it through the lens of L'fum tzayda agra, there's no difference between Rashi, Rambam, and Berel Shmerel in 2024. Because in a certain sense, how did they wish to measure whether someone's close or distant from Hashem? How do we measure the relationship? The relationship of a Yid to Hashem is measured by how much he goes out of himself to serve Hashem. As the Alter Rebbe says in chapter 6 of Tanya, Kedusha einay ella masha batel etzli yisbarach. So for Rashi and the Rambam in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, they had their way, how they had to prove that was the real sign of a true servant of Hashem. Vayiminu b'Hashem u'v'Moshe avdoi. So Moshe is also avdoi, and there's a way how Moshe has to do something which is greater than the nature of Moshe, whatever that means. Because he's an Eved, and that's what the definition of an Eved is. He serves a master. And the same thing is true in the year Tov Shin Pei Daled, 2024. Whoever you are, you also have a struggle. And we're not looking at the results. How many Blat Gemara you know, how many Mesechtas you know, or whether you're writing a Pirush. That's not what counts. What counts is L'fum tzayda agra. We have challenges of the generation, of internet, of whatever the challenges is of our times. That's how we're supposed to measure what is going on in our generation and how we're connected to the Eibishter. And the Eibishter looks at this generation and our challenges and says, L'fum tzayda agra. So it's no difference between 1,000 years ago or this year. They had their challenges, and we have our challenges, and that's what Yiddishkeit's about. You get rewarded according to the effort, how much toil was involved, how much you bend yourself, how much you go out of yourself and surrender to something which is greater than yourself, or transcend and become part of something which is larger than yourself. That's one aspect of toil. Then there's another aspect of toil. The time is getting late. I don't even know how much we're going to be able to cover today. There was a series of talks, and the Rebbe was very much in this idea, but the main year was 1 year, Alf Nissen and Pesach time, where the Rebbe spoke about the idea of Nasa Shutef LaKodesh Baruch Hu. The Eibishter made the world Lasis L'Sakin, incomplete, imperfect, and he wanted man to perfect it. And that's how we become a partner in creation. So this is a whole different emphasis. Hashem wants us to toil, not because of a sense of subservience and transcending, going out of the limitations of man, but also to show achievement, accomplishment, to be godlike. What's true achievement? What's true accomplishment? When it's not namad d'chsufa, when it's not free. According to the measure of the toil is the measure of how much you can actually say that you become a shut of l'maisa b'reishis. If it came easy, then nothing is attributed to you. And over here when we're saying attributed to you, we mean, in a sense, it's not ego. It's because the Eibishter wants to bring out your godly soul. There's that spark of the Creator in you, how you can then act Creator-like. And it doesn't make you have ego, chas v'sholom, as something separate and independent from Hashem. That's exactly how you become partner with Hashem. So it's also connected to, obviously, everything is about becoming one with Hashem. But like when we say to emulate Hashem, so the emphasis is not so much the idea of being a servant, obedience, but emulate means you're developing yourself internally with different traits. And there's also the traits of creating, accomplishing, achieving. And only when it's connected to toil is it really considered achievement. So it's another whole aspect and a profound, profound idea. But now let's go back to, in this Parsha we saw one story, the story of the beams coming up. And now quickly I'm just going to, now by the way, the Eira Chaim over here, on that pasuk, the question that we said before, that the pasuk said, Vateichel kol avedis mishkan, the Eira Chaim says, one answer, Oid Yitzah B'imrei Vateichel L'tzad Shahoy B'Meloches Shenasu Me'atzmam. So, what does it mean? The same answer is here. Back to what we said, U'Varech Hashem L'kecha B'chol Shetase. You have to realize that the main thing is to get the bracha of Hashem. And that's why Vateichel Kol Avedis Mishkan, you have to realize Hashem is interested in the Mishkan, and the things that are going to happen regardless if you do the job or you don't do the job. And that's what the Baal Eira Chaim says, L'tzad shoya b'melochis shenasa me'atzmam, shehi menorah, she'omru zal shenasas me'atzmam. So that's the message is, Vateichel kol avedis mishkan el mayed. There are things that the Eibishter makes sure that happens, independent regardless of the person. But then there's also, you have to realize that when does Vateichel kol avedis mishkan el mayed, when does the Eibishter finish off and do his part? When vayasu b'nei Yisrael kechel shesiv Hashem es Moshe kein osu. So we see both points. Now, a major theme in this week's parsha is, we started with the prayer of Moshe Rabbeinu as they finished all the work, and vayivorech Hashem Moshe. That's in Pasuk Mem Gimel, and over here is what Rashi says: Omalei miratzon shetish shechina b'maisei yedechem v'inoyam Hashem Elokeinu aleinu. So again, after everything is done, what's the makabeh patish? What's the final statement? Moshe is saying, and now, after we did our part, we need that Hashem should bless it. And only after Moshe says the blessing could it happen. It also tells us that we need always a bracha from a tzaddik. Now let's quickly, it's already very late, we'll say another 2 episodes in the Torah where we see this, and that's, as the Eira Chaim over here mentioned, the menorah. But where is it said clearly in the Torah? It's in 2 places. In one place where it says you should make the menorah, and it says Te'aseh was made. But that's in Baloischa. Oy vey, I lost it over here. I had prepared where it was. But in Baloischa, where it says in the beginning over there that there was a menorah, Rashi brings it down. Let me see if I can find it right now. Hold on. It should be in the beginning. I'm going to get it. And it says, Kein Osa Samenera. Okay, that's Kapitel Ches, Pasuk Dalid. And Rashi says, Kein Osa Samenera, so did he make the menorah. And Rashi says, the pronoun he, so did he make the menorah, refers to Misha, so whoever made it. But the Pasuk doesn't say, it says whoever made it. Anyways. And then he brings, Umedesh HaGodal Yidei HaKodesh Baruch Hu, Nasas Me'eleo. As the famous Medrash, it said Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know how to do it, and the Eibusha told him, just take the piece of gold and throw it into the fire, and then the menorah was made. So same idea, we see this formula. You do your part, We still wanted that it should be a connection. There's a partnership over here. Moshe has to pick up the piece of gold. Once you pick it up and throw it into the fire, then we'll get the menorah. And the other story is, and this is very, very important because the wording of Rashi over here is amazing. What I just mentioned was mentioned in Parshas Ba'aloischa, and the other one is in Parshas Bamidbar when it comes to a census where the Eibusha tells Moshe to count Bnei Levi. And the pasuk says, "Vayifkei Moshe al pi Hashem." Moshe counted them according to the word of Hashem. And over here also the question is, what do you mean he counted them according to the word of Hashem? So he went and he just counted them. What does it mean according to the word of Hashem? And Rashi over here also brings down, "Oma Moshe lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu heichani nichnas l'teicha aleim l'das minyan yenkeyem." How could I know the number of nursing infants? It would be against tznius. Omalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu aseh ato shalcha. You do your part. Vani eseh sheli. And I will do my part. Holach Moshe v'amad al Pesach ha'oyel. Moshe went and stood by the entrance of the tent. V'hashchina mekadmeres lefonav, and the Eibishter would be there before. V'baskel yitzis min ha'oyel, and a heavenly voice came from the tent. V'aimis kach v'kach tinekis yesh ba'oyel. There is such and such number of babies in this tent. L'kach nemar al pi Hashem. So how do you know the amount that was in the tent, even though they didn't go there? Because Hashem's voice, sound, came out and said, these are the number of babies that are in this tent. So we see 3 stories. There's nothing like a Ma'aser Rav. 3 stories, we have the same formula. You do your part. Take the gold, throw it into the fire. You go and stand in front of the tent. And the same thing is over here. Put your finger to the beam. In each case, Hashem wants man's involvement. There has to be some level of toil. And by the way, in another sikha, the Rebbe explains that the idea of the census, that Moshe Rabbeinu himself, usually when it comes to a census in the world, they take people that are unemployed, nobodies, and they're the ones who go around counting the census. And over here, what did the Eibusha say? Dafka Moshe Rabbeinu, the ultimate leader, he's the one who has to go house to house. And there's 2 million Jews, let's say, 2 million Yidden. And it's Moshe Rabbeinu himself, the greatest of the great. The leader, the number 1 person of the entire nation, he has to go and count every single person. The Rebbe spoke a sikha to show how the enormous, unbelievable, awesome quality of every single Yid, that it's the Moshe Rabbeinu himself who counts the Yid and cherishes, similar to the Eibush who counts every Yid. But the point is, it was a toil. Here's Moshe going house to house. You know, sometimes you have a leader, he likes to, delegate. You know, he could have sent anybody go do it. No. Moshe Rabbeinu himself has to go around throughout all the camps and count every single person. So there's the toil of man. But at the same time, the Eibush is there, makes a miracle in each place. So we see how it goes together. So there is a famous Yiddish expression. I just want to bring out some of the sayings. So again, we see both sides of the coin. On the one hand, sometimes about some things we say there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees. You have to do your part. And even if you don't see the result, you should know that it doesn't take away from the fact that you have to do your part. On the other hand, we say, when it comes to avodas hashlichas, avodas hakodesh, you're guaranteed to see the results. And that's a famous Hayom Yom. Hayom Yom Revid Beis Tishrei. Everyone knows bris kruso letamulo va'avoda b'moyatzes chochmo b'kirev hadas she'eina chizeres reikom. We are assured by covenant that any wide-ranging effort and labor pursued with wise counsel and with friendship is never fruitless. So when it comes to somebody who's on shlichus somewhere, or is working in chinuch, anything which is connected to avodas hakodesh, we know bris krusa that you'll never be fruitless. When it comes to other areas, it's in personal life. Sometimes there's no guarantees, but that still doesn't take away from the fact you have to do your part. And this is also another, and the Eibishter, sometimes we see how he does his part. He's always doing his part, and even if it doesn't always work out, the main thing is you got to do your part. And for that, that's what it means. By you doing your part, We say, Serusel Tata, Serusel Eila, Ruach, Aisi Ruach, V'amshich Ruach. Now, there's another line that brings out again a bit of the opposite, and the Rebbe also, I think, brought it down. I once saw in Likutei Sichos. A'idaf ton, ufton, daf der Eibishter. You gotta do. The results, the success, that's already in the hands of Hashem. That comes into play sometimes when the Rebbe says, you went to Mivtzoyim, and you knocked on 10 doors to get people to put on tefillin, and every single one said no. So you have to know, A'idaf ton, you gotta do, ufton. The results to see how many people came to that concert or to that shir that you gave. That's already, you have to daven and ask to see more success. But if not, it doesn't take away from your work. And then the Rebbe would usually say, you never know. And this in my personal life, I see so many times, I get these messages and these signs that the Eibusher told me, you never know the return and the dividends of how you impacted someone's life. So therefore, you got to do what you got to do. And you'll see the results. And this is also what the Rebbe used to always emphasize. Yogaiti umatzosi. As Chassidus always says, Yogaiti means to toil. Umatzosi is like a metzia, it's a find. Like someone walking in the street, and he wasn't even aware of it, that it was there, and he finds something that he did, that was a surprise. It was unintended, he didn't realize it. And it was like, the unintended consequences, the unintended reward, the unintended success, that it becomes unparalleled, even in measuring the amount of how much you invested. The return will be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times greater than your investment. Imagine you invested something for 10 cents, and from the 10 cents you got $10 million. That's what the message is over here. Yogaiti umatzosi. If you invest, what you find is something which is considered like a metzia, something that you never imagined, that the success will be so much. So the Eibusher should help. The Taka, we should see fruits from all our labors. Because, I think I mentioned this already before, each person in their life, sometimes they have these doubts, whether they're seeing return on the investment or not. So the bracha is, every single one of us, the whole b'nei Yisrael, b'chol makom shehem, we should see return on the investment. And we should see every one of us return b'toiv, v'nireh, v'nigla, in every single area of our life. We should see return in all areas of our life, and especially also in our service of Hashem, in our learning Torah, in our chidushay Torah, in our avodas hatfilah. We should steig, that I would say you should thrive in your learning, and in your davening you should feel you're getting places, that you don't become impacted and tzekratzt from the whole Elam Hazeh, and you live a higher life, an elevated life, and you see it. It's because you invested, you're committed in the inyanim of Torah and mitzvahs and avodas Hashem, and the Eibusher should see that we're doing our part, and he should do his part to bring the Geula mitzvah Shleima, take it from Yad Mamish. Good Shabbos, Chazak, Vinis Chazek, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, your man in Melbourne.